What's going on, guys? And welcome to episode number 49 of RizzoCast. And we are joined today by none other than one of my high school baseball coaches, Jeff Ramirez from Archbishop Riordan High School in San Francisco. He coaches high school baseball. He's done it for a few years now. Coach Jeff, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, but I want to give my audience, which is very small. It's basically my family and a few friends, but I want to let them know who you are. So let's talk about your awards,
Oh,
your
God.
high school, your college. You have like 7, 8. How many awards do you have, and what are they called? I'm really not in the loop in those.
So, what are we doing? Like baseball, journalism, or did
Oh,
you?
all.
So let's see, baseball. I think I only have one. I got most inspirational freshman year, I think.
Oh man.
But for
Okay.
journalism, I think there's a lot of them for individual stories. But I guess the most recent one is a good place to a good one to start here. I got one for a story I did almost a year ago about the pandemic, and it got a kind of national award. So that was pretty awesome. But it's been a fun ride, but it's just the beginning. So how you doing? How's life? How are you holding up during this pandemic? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm one of the blessed ones that still has a job through all this. So I can't complain whatsoever with everything that's going on. I just feel for the kids, the multi-sport athletes, the athletes in general, students. They're essentially being put in prison for something that they didn't do, all these rules and regulations that growing up I never had to deal with, not even close. So I'm doing great. Doing
That's
great. I can't complain at all. How you doing throughout all this?
having a lot of fun. So I'm excited to have you on. We're going to talk a lot of baseball. Should be a lot of fun. We talked on the phone. We kind of planned out what we were going to talk about. So
Oh yeah.
you're a great baseball guy. I mean, when did it start for you? Like growing up, when did you know that, hey, I really love this game? When was that for you?
I had a luxury of an older brother that he was really into sports. And when you're really young and you have an older brother, you don't win. So I got used to losing at a very young age. And I think what that taught me was to love the game and not care about the outcome. And so, I was pretty average throughout my entire career until I hit about maybe 11 years old. Um, and I just thought I was very obsessed with the sport because of Sports Center and this guy right here. I don't know if you know who this guy is.
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, Barry Bonds, man. I was very blessed to watch him play. But I'm going to give you a golden snippet, which not a lot of people know about my life and why I got into sports in general.
Oh, let's do it.
So when you have an older brother, your brother ends up getting older friends. From about 3rd to 5th grade, a little bit of 6th grade, your boy got picked on, bro. And I'm not like just like make fun of him. I'm talking like walking to school, getting pushed to the ground and kicked and punched like once a week. Like it got to the point where my escape was focusing my vision and all my focus on sports, the only thing I was really good at. So that's what growing up was like until I hit about 11, 12, really came into my own a little bit. So yeah, I would say just external things around me really brought me closer to the game. And not a lot of people know this too, but my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 8 or 9 years old. And I told you this in our game meetings, or our team meetings, where I remember my mom coming to a game when she was on chemotherapy. And I just remember thinking it was the only game in my life where I didn't care what happened. Right. And I ended up hitting a home run that game, like my first home run over a fence. Never did it in my whole life. And when my mom came to my game when she was on chemo, I actually hit a home run. So that was kind of the start of my career and understanding at a young age that it's all mentality, right? Like there's so many good people on paper, but once you step into that game, it's anyone's game. So I really held on to that feeling that it could be my day, right? So that's why I loved the game of baseball.
Yeah, that's a great story. So, what were some of the differences? Because I know this is something we wanted to touch on. What were some of the differences from you playing baseball growing up? Because what would you say the years in terms of years for you? Was it the 90s? It was the 90s, early 2000s. Would you
Yeah.
say that's right?
Yeah.
So, what was kind of the difference between that compared to someone like me or someone of my generation or some of the players that are getting into the big leagues right now? What was some of the differences that you found?
You know, if you asked me this question right when I got out of baseball, I probably would have had that old man, these kids aren't tough, these kids, blah, blah, blah. But none of that's true. It's the same game, Steve. I swear to you, it's the same game. I think the difference between when I was growing up playing and now is that success and failure are heightened because of how much you can put on the internet, how much video you can get. It was very hard back in the day to get an at bat on video. You had to like buy a legit camera. Now everyone has that in their phones, and literally everybody in the park can watch you fail or succeed. And I think back in our day, our egos were easily deflated because there was so much talent. But now I feel like today's ego, like, you ever heard the term never get too high when you win, never get too low when you lose?
Yeah.
I believe that's the issue today, that kids get too high when they win and too low when they lose because their successes and their failures are documented now, even at a young age. Like I'm watching people upload videos and at bats of their kids when they're 11 and 12 years old. I never would have dreamed of watching myself hit when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. So I think that's the major difference. Is I think the external pressure is a lot harder these days on these kids, man. And that's where I think the difference is.
Yeah, I think, parents are big time involved now, right? As you mentioned, and they're trying to get their kids picked up by a D1 college at 11 and 12 years old. And it's like I don't think it's healthy at all. I mean, because at that age, I mean, you're with your friends.
That's so far from your thought process when you're that young.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're having fun with your friends. And I think when all of that should come to your mind, should be at a higher level when you realize this is what I want to do. I'm good enough to where I could do that. So that's what I think in terms of making baseball a career. Because a lot of these kids, most of them are not, if ask a little league player, or I mean, we could just pop up some statistics. I'm not going to do it, but you and I could just say that nobody on a little league team, on an average little league team, will ever make it to the big leagues. Would you agree with that?
That's 100% true. And that's what's so hard about communicating to parents why coaches do certain things.
You probably have to hear about it all the time. I mean,
well, I try to keep an open and honest communication line with. I was a head coach of the Roos. We call them the Roos, and I really learned that communicating to the parents honestly about what I'm trying to do was key. And I think I tried to gain respect that way. Maybe some of them did, maybe some of them didn't. I'm not sure, but I think when you think too much of your kid, I think that hurts him because he may not think that much of himself, right? And even if he did, there needs to be someone to knock you down. There really needs to be. And I think that's huge for today's athletes. I was watching Shaquille O'Neal interview that guard from Utah. I forgot his name, but he's really good. He's a stud. And Shaq said, "Hey," he started off the conversation by saying, "You're one of my favorite players these days, but," he said, "I don't think you have what it takes to be a superstar. I don't think you have enough to make it to the championship." And back in my day, that was kind of a kick in the butt, light a fire under you. That it wasn't saying like, "I really don't think you can do it," because if he really truly thought that, he wouldn't even pay attention to him, right? But nowadays, like, like your 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid hits a double or hits a home run, and now all of a sudden, like, you have plans of a major league
Yeah,
dream.
He's Babe Ruth.
Yeah, and you just got to take it a day at a time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how puberty plays a role in how good you are as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just hit puberty first. That's why you're hitting the ball farther than this kid. Then you go to high school, all of a sudden people are bigger, stronger, and better than you. How are you going to compete with that? And then the mind game starts. But yeah, don't get too high when you win. Don't get too low when you lose. It's kind of the opposite nowadays, as you see.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely the opposite. And I like what you mentioned earlier when you said that they get too high when they win and they get too low when they lose. And when they get too low when they lose, I think the pressure is taking a lot of kids out of the game and even out of sports altogether. Because I mean, you probably grew up where, get home for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
stay outside all day, get home for dinner. So what was that like for you as a kid, staying outside all day with your friends, playing baseball? Was that like something that you endured as a kid?
It was an everyday thing. And when I say every day, I don't mean I took a random Sunday off, a random Wednesday off, a random Saturday off. No, if it was not raining outside, me and my friends were competing in something, right? Baseball, basketball, football, didn't really matter. I was really blessed to have good talent around me and kids that really cared to get better. Because if you don't have that, how are you going to push yourself, right? If you don't have somebody that's better than you, if you don't have somebody that you look at like, I want to be like that guy, look how good he is. I felt like I was blessed to have not only good talent, but good coaches around me. But yeah, for these kids, there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of technology distraction where they yeah. And I don't want to say like, oh, if I had technology, I would leave it alone. I probably would have fell into that too, because I'm into it now. I have an Instagram. I have a phone that I check.
You're here on Zoom with me.
I'm here on Zoom with you. Yeah. But yeah, I would love to. I mean, there was not a time, if there was a nice day out, that you went to a park or a basketball court that it was empty. Mm-hmm. And all I see is empty parks and basketball courts now. It's bizarre to me. Very bizarre. We need to get the kids back out. That's for sure. And there are kids that go out. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is there are people that parents pay a lot of money to go to certain facilities. And these kids have a real edge on kids that are staying home and then make the team because they have some talent. But you don't need a $1,000 facility when you have a park right next to your house. You have infinite things you can do at that park.
Or garage to throw a ball against or something. Or
my
net,
Lord,
something like that.
I mean, I had to be creative. I mean, I was known for hoarding tennis balls. And for those who don't know, my mom is probably going to crack up right now. But for Christmas from 7 years to about 15, because 15, I started taking off side view mirrors. So I stopped hitting tennis balls on my street. But that
was when the exit velo started coming.
Yeah, that's when I started really, really using some torque. But you would catch me out on my front yard hitting tennis balls for hours on end. And I would go through lineups. Like if Rafael Furcal came up, I was batting left-handed. He was a switch hitter. But that's how I worked on my game. And what I didn't know is my street's narrow. So I really have to stay center, which as a kid, I'm not thinking center field. I'm thinking I used to mark out places where I thought home runs would be. And if I hit the tennis ball over there, I would pimp my home run as I'm going to get my ball. I was so in my head as a kid. And I think if kids are more like that now, where they're just so obsessed that nothing else matters in the world, you would see some absolute monsters on that field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did the exact same thing. I did batting stances through the lineups. Albert Pujols was a favorite. I mean, I loved his stance. I would do pitching mechanics. I would do it by uniform number. So like
Oh, that's
40,
interesting.
yeah, 49 was Javier Lopez, and I'd go all the way up and make random numbers and assign players to random numbers. It was a lot of fun. And um, the more the reps, like it doesn't even matter if you're on a field, the more the reps, you're still doing more than some other kids.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of your playing days. I know you went
Oh boy.
through high school. People may not know this, and I didn't mention it in the intro because I knew we were going to get to it. When you introduced me, and you know the story, when we first met.
Yep.
Yeah, when we first met, we were in the hallway, and we had to watch some. I was entering into my first year at varsity in high school, and we had to watch videos of infielders making
Right.
plays. So we would call out the players would call out suggestions from. We were in a classroom, and we would say Andrelton Simmons, and Coach Jeff would type in Andrelton Simmons, and we'd watch highlight videos of him. Before we got into that room, he stuck his hand out. It was his first day on the job and said, "I'm Coach Jeff. I was drafted by the Padres." So that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Tell us about the draft. How did you find out, and what kind of, because I know you didn't sign. So
Yeah.
what kind of went down, and tell me a little bit about that.
So interesting story to say the least. It started my sophomore year. I started getting letters, and I think I still have them at the house, where I got a letter from every single Division I school in California. Right. So I have this big old stack, and it started my sophomore year. And so I started to think like, I'm getting my name out there. Right. Then I started to have cross checkers come into my game. Now, for those who don't know, there are scouts and there are cross checkers. When the scout thinks that you're worthy, they bring in the cross checker, I believe. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I got drafted by the Padres, the Cincinnati Reds were the ones that kept knocking at my door. And when I say knocking at my door, I mean literally came to my house, right? My senior year, which is interesting. Interestingly enough, they came over, they had a DVD. DVDs just came out like a couple of years ago. They had a DVD of the Cincinnati Reds way. And so it was almost like the Yankees, where they said, you had to shave your face, the standard of greatness, all these things. And then looking back at the Big Red Machine, I had to learn about them, which I already knew a lot about them already because I was a Joe Morgan fan. He was, even though my grandpa, rest in peace, my grandpa hated Joe Morgan's broadcasting, but loved his baseball play. He thought he talked too much and tried to call the game. But anyway, so the Cincinnati Reds, actually, when you get drafted back in the day, they did an eye test, right? So they wanted to know if you can see certain colors, certain shapes, certain sizes. And it looked like something, they brought something from a doctor's office. It just looked weird, but it was so cool to go through the vision test. We're going through everything, and it's so funny. My high school coach, Carlos Ramon, was there, and I remember him asking me, "Hey, are you 6 foot or are you 6'1"?" And me thinking, like, without any shoes on, I'm 5'11". But I told the guy I was 6 foot, right? And then my coach brought me aside and was like, "If anyone ever asks you if you're 6 foot or 6'1", you tell them you're 6'1". And so I kind of blew that right off the bat. But they sat me down and they wrote a number on a piece of paper, and it was $50,000. And they said, that would be your signing bonus. And we're thinking of drafting you from the 10th to the 15th round. Right. So they said, you don't have to answer us now. We'll come back. They gave me a date on which it was like one of my last varsity games at home. And they said, we'll come there and we'll talk to you then. I said, okay, fine. And I was a very immature kid. I knew if I signed that and I didn't have anything to come back on, that my life was going to be tough. And I had good family members that really put confidence in me that if I went to college, I can maybe get more money, maybe less money, but I'll be more prepared for the real world. So when they came for one of my last senior games, after the game, I actually took BP with the cross checker and the scout, going left-handed, going right-handed. And, I did as well as anybody could do, I guess. But what a lot of people don't know is there was a Burlingame guy. Oh my God, how can I forget his name? He played like 10 or 11 years in minor league baseball, and he actually was in the workout with me. This dude was hitting absolute bombs. I'm not talking about like, oh, okay, he just hit it over the fence. He hit it 150 feet over the fence, and it wasn't with the metal bat we were taking BP with. This guy was hitting absolute dingers, making me look like a little leadoff hitter, right? So they brought me aside and asked me if I wanted to sign, and I essentially told them that I think I'm going to go to college. And so they kept going back and forth, and I just said, I just don't think I'm ready yet, but I'm on my way. And so what the Padres did is they drafted and followed me. Now, 2006 is the last time that the draft and follow actually happened. And what the draft and follow is that they own your rights for a year, so nobody's allowed to sign you until they release you. So technically, I was part of the San Diego Padres organization for a year playing at CSM.
Woo!
Yeah. But that was essentially it. I went to Skyline. I had the best year of my life with one of the best coaches I've ever had in my life, John Quintel. Man, did he give me some hitting instruction. I've never hit like that in my entire life, and I probably never will again. I led the league in home runs, RBIs, triples, total bases. I was like second or third in batting average. I just had a heck of a year, and I didn't get drafted. Yeah, it was disappointing because I thought this was it. Like, scouts were coming to watch Jimmy Parquet, and Jimmy Parquet is one of my favorite players I've ever played with.
Heard the name, yes.
He's a Pacifica guy.
He is. So this is very randomly, I spent some time with him one day. My grandma was actually she worked at a daycare in Pacifica, California, of course. And he, after his career, it was either after his career or during the off season, he was working at the daycare as one of the instructors or whatever staff members. And I was visiting my grandma, and we formed a wiffle ball game, and he was hitting bombs on the roof. So I do know the name Jimmy Parquet. Small world.
Yeah. So scouts were coming to see him play, and I tried to like ride that piggyback a little bit and try to outshow him as we were trying to win games together. Didn't quite happen. Didn't
Hey Jimmy, can you tell him that my name is Jeff Ramirez?
Yeah. Jimmy, tell him I'm pretty good, bro. But yeah, that didn't pan out, but I did get a scholarship. Lee University. Didn't have a great experience over there. I went over there with the wrong attitude. Let me just say that. It was when you're young, you think you're cooler and better than you actually are. And so my ego was very big, and it became very small when I didn't find success early. So it was kind of the death of my professional career over there. But I'm thankful for it because it brought me into coaching.
And yeah, let's get into that. Coaching. How did that transition? How was that transition? Because I know you mentioned you were, a very successful high school player and had some good college years. Was it difficult coaching? Because this is the number one thing. This is why we don't see a lot of great players as coaches. Was it difficult, trying to get down to a level? You're so used to being up here in baseball, and then coaching someone that doesn't have the skill set that you have. Was that hard, kind of adjusting in the coaching?
I'll tell you this, it's not hard at all if there's passion, right? Mm-hmm. If that kid wants to get better, that fuels you as a coach, or at least me, because I'm going to say this, I might disrespect somebody that I've coached or played with, but I'm just going to tell the truth here, Steve. Mm-hmm. But no matter who I coach, I feel like I'm better than everybody, right? At their age. So even if I felt that way, it doesn't matter, right? Like I think I'm better than you anyway. Let's get you better, right? So that's just me. When you interviewed Sean Estes, like, I remember the specific question, like, does your stuff still play in today's game? Could you still pitch? And it's so crazy. Like, maybe not, but in his mind, he can pitch right now. Like, that's just who he is. He's competitive. So of course my stuff can play. I played in the big leagues against Gary Sheffield, against Carlos Delgado, these guys that mashed baseballs 800 feet. So yeah, I mean, but coaching though, I got into it with Brandon Ramsey.
Shout out
To Brandon Ramsey, man. He now, interesting story about Brandon Ramsey. Growing up, he was the local Barry Bonds. I mean, I think he was 2 years older than my brother, but he was a young 2 years older. So my brother could play with them at certain times of their career. And when I say a man child, this dude was a man child, dude. He was 12, 13, 14 years old, hitting absolute 370-foot bombs. I used to look forward to watching Brandon hit. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have maybe any conversation until I reached out to my old coach saying that I want to get back in the coaching. And he said, I'll give you Brandon Ramsey's number. And so when I called him, he was like, yeah, man, let's get you out here. Let's coach this JV team. And I could not ask for a better coach to work under and learn from. The way he is detailed about every single thing that he does. You can attest to this.
Oh, yeah. And in case you guys don't know, Brandon Ramsey is the head coach at Archbishop Riordan High School in San Francisco. So, and he brought Coach Jeff, of course, along with him. And yeah, I've heard the stories. I think you told the one about the tennis courts at San Bruno Park.
Oh my Lord. Okay. Not tennis courts, but the school. This guy's 15 years old. Anybody that knows San Bruno Park knows there's no fence anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. There's a scoreboard about 380 to left field. And when he's 15 years old, I see a ball disappear like a golf ball off of his bat. It went over the scoreboard and literally disappeared in my vision. So it was like watching a major league hitter against an 8-year-old. It was so much of a sight. I just remember, like, I want to be that guy. I want to hit balls that far anyway, so getting into coaching with him, like I said, his attention to detail, and that's where I really found my spark, because I had the eye just like him, but maybe not the vernacular of defining success within a drill, right? Because it can get monotonous, but with him, the drill was the key to success. And so I learned how to really dial in on details, defining what success is leading up to, or we play 7 innings. We don't even play 9 innings anymore, do we? We play 7.
It's been a while.
7-inning game. Yeah. I don't even know how many innings we play anymore. Yeah, so that's how I got back into coaching. Interestingly enough, the second year, I was the head coach of the JV softball team at El Camino. And I really learned how to break the game down into the simplest form ever. Like literally teaching young girls just how to catch the ball, decelerate, how to throw properly with your wrist, and breaking down the game and do a part where I thought I never would have to. But wow, did I enjoy that process of seeing these young ladies transfer from I don't know really what I'm doing to we won a bunch of ball games. So in 2 years, I guess they didn't win any. In my year, we went 4-8. So I quadrupled their wins. But I really felt good about that. And I felt like that was Brandon Ramsey, and then coaching on my own really set me up with a game plan for the future. There was time off where I didn't coach because I had to get a career and pay for bills, right? Mm-hmm. But once I got back into coaching, it was like I never took my foot out.
Yeah, no, attention to detail is the perfect way to describe it. And coming up through Little League and coming up through Pony, and I mean, get in front of the ball. That's what you hear, or throw harder. Well, coaches don't say that, but
throw strikes, man.
Yeah, throw strikes. But
I didn't know that, coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
And the coaching staff in high school just really, the detail. I mean, Coach Ramsey had us running base running every single day. And I don't know if there's a high school that does it, but taking turns, looking, running with your head up. I remember one thing you said, base running, hesitation is the killer. And it always stuck with me because that's, hesitation, not just in base running, but in baseball, and not just in baseball, life. Like any type of hesitation you're ever going to come across is killer. I didn't even know what I was doing when I was on the mound my first 2 years, and Coach Harlan says, your front side is opening up. I didn't even know what that meant. So that's the attention to detail. Yeah. I mean, your hitting drills that we did with the visualization, with our eyes closed, point of contact. I mean, all of that was attention to detail. So it's pretty amazing what coaches could teach players, without just saying the normal cliches, get in front of the ball, or, Coach Lynn, I had him on the show a few months ago. We did a triangle infield drill every single day in the winter. And Riordan guys that are listening, because this is a highly anticipated episode, just saying. So there's a lot of them listening. You guys might hate that triangle drill, but I mean, I was not the greatest infielder, but it made me a whole lot better. So attention to detail is really big. So let's get into hitting. I know this is your strong suit. This is where you make your money, hitting.
Let's do it.
So what are some of the trends in today's game? I'll start this off here. The trend that I hate the most in today's game of baseball is the strikeout. It is the biggest turnoff, in my opinion, from just somebody watching a game, somebody trying to look at it from a strategic standpoint, right? And it's just become so acceptable in this game. Like walks, you either walk, homer, or strikeout. And I can't accept this. Like if I'm sitting there evaluating a team and a player, I cannot accept a strikeout when a guy's standing at second base with nobody out. It's just not something. And then go back to the
especially
dugout.
Taking, right? Especially a backwards K.
How is it acceptable? So that's my pet peeve. Like I'd be completely fine if these guys are walking, hitting 50 homers, but also hitting 300. So what are some of your hitting trends that you've noticed in today's game?
I've noticed the 2-strike hitting has kind of gone out the window, right?
Gone. Yep, gone.
Right? Because when I'm growing up, right, the 2-strike hitting was, okay, choke up, don't go forward on your stride. And I want if you're a hitter, I want you to try this. I need you to learn how to hit without a stride. This is what turned my career around in college. But anyway, so that's what I feel like. I feel like the 2 strikes hitting is out the door, especially at the big league level. And I'll tell you why. And I can circle back to this on shifts, on how they evaluate pitchers, to how they pay hitters. Everything is a money game. So guys aren't willing to take the opposite field single anymore because they're not going to get paid for it unless they're stealing 100 bags a year, where if they get on base, they're literally a walking double or triple.
Do you know
they're literally an RBI?
Do you know it's been 15 years since somebody stole over 70 bases?
My Lord.
Isn't that crazy?
I just think it's a money game. I think hitters are chasing that huge check, and they're not going to do it bunting. They're not going to do it with the single anymore. And that's what's sad. I think it's not sad. I don't want to say sad. I don't think it's smart for winning baseball games, right? You're not going to have 9 3-hole hitters in your lineup. Somebody's got to get on base. Somebody's got to knock a ball into the gap, right? Somebody's got to repeat that. I'll ask a pitcher, how did the game change in your mind when there was nobody on base to somebody on second and third?
It was more stressful. I think that's it. I mean, you had to worry about you had to worry about a guy getting a base hit. That's the main thing. You had to worry about, you had to be more perfect with hitting your spots. You had to be more perfect with pitch selection. And I guess I didn't select my pitches, but everything that was selected was, the right call, of course, because, when I see somebody at second base, I mean, it's like a light switch that goes off in your head. Like it's right. Like a light switch. You're on. What I want to say is that you're on edge. You're on edge more, and it becomes more stressful for the defense, because the defense, a ball hit in the left field, you have to make the perfect throw to the plate. A ground ball to short, you have to complete the double play. And when there's nobody on base, you bobble a ball, there's still a time to get it out. But when there's guys on base, you bobble a ball, you might not get anybody.
Yeah.
So,
and a run might score.
Yeah. And plus, there's extra thinking you have to do.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking when a play is in progress, you're screwed. If you're trying to make decisions when something's happening in baseball, what I've learned, you are screwed. You have to think about that before. If I'm playing second base, and I was more of a PO, so I didn't get to play second base that often. If I'm playing second base, I mean, and a ball's hit to me, and I'm thinking when the ball's hit to me, one, I'm going to screw up and make an error. And two, I'm not going to know where to make the play. So thinking in baseball has to be predetermined. And with runners on base, it just completely wipes all that out because you have more to think about.
Changes your mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 100%. What you're going to throw. And now you think about that 1-1 curveball, that 1-1 changeup, because that goes in the dirt and you don't trust your catcher. That could be a run too,
Or if you hang it, that's 3 runs instead of 1.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? At the major league level, I remember growing up thinking, let's see what they have in their bullpen, right? Now it's like we don't want to get to their bullpen. Everyone throws 99. So it's such a different. I remember like in the major leagues in 2006, my senior year, there was maybe a handful of guys that can throw 99. Now there's a handful of guys on the Tampa Bay Devil Rays that throw 99.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but hitters are adjusting to that. Let me tell these young kids, you think you throw hard at 85, 86 miles an hour, you got something else coming to you, man. You need to take a little off, get some movement, work on your changeup, work on your two-seam, work on your cutter. That's going to get better hitters out down the road than your 84 mile an hour four-seam. Trust me when I say this. Hitters are not scared of 90 anymore. It's just you're a dime a dozen.
Yeah, and you're never going to get away with 84 if it's just straight.
Oh, absolutely.
You gotta two-seam it. You gotta sink it. The evolution of hitting is crazy because I don't think the hitters nowadays think that they're watching home runs, and that's great if you're hitting home runs, but there's something to it where 30 home runs and Barry Bonds said this the other day, 30 home runs and 230 is getting you released. How many 300 hitters a lifetime have you seen get released?
Yes. Oh my Lord. That is preach, young Steven, preach.
No, I didn't say it. Barry Bonds said it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this and carousel it here into the shift because I think they go hand in hand. And
absolutely.
At the big league level, we've seen Ryan Howard comes to mind. Ryan Howard was a heck of a left-handed hitter, and the shift ended his career. I mean, I've heard him talk about it, how, he was tallying it up. Him and the hitting coach would tally it up after every season, and 120 hits were getting taken away from him because of the shift. And on one side of it,
his swing mechanics where he could take an away pitch and hit it extremely hard to the pull side, not just like he rope it to the pull side. And I think, with the shift going on, I think what they're trying to do, and I'm going to circle back to this is money. Go ahead, get paid to hit a single left when you're a 50 home run a year guy. There's something about a guy that is a great hitter that can hit the ball over the fence. When they see a shift and an open third base as a lefty, there's something that tells them, I'm not going to get paid doing that. Yeah. Especially if I'm a first baseman or an outfielder, right? Like, it's just so mind-boggling to me that hitters, and I'd probably be the same way if I was hitting 50 home runs a year. Like, if I can get a $50 million contract, just yanking, hitting 250, 45 home runs, I'd probably do that over the Tony Gwynn approach, hit them where they ain't, hit 320, and maybe hit 15 home runs a year. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be more Tony Gwynns and there needs to be more Greg Maddoxes in this game.
Yes, sir.
Really it's such a shame that there's a lot of good college kids that can hit good hitting, that can pitch with good movement, and they're getting overlooked because they can't touch 95 or they can't hit the ball 475 feet. And that's not necessarily, I mean, do you remember the first time the St. Louis Cardinals beat the Red Sox? You might not have been. It was 2004. Were you alive then?
I consider myself a baseball historian, so I know what was going on.
Do you remember the shortstop?
For which team?
The St. Louis Cardinals.
Was it Edgar Renteria?
No.
Was it Rafael Furcal?
No.
Was it David Eckstein?
David Eckstein. This dude was like 5'5". He hit like 2 postseason grand slams. He was this little guy that could have been the best player on that field during those World Series. He rarely struck out. He made every play at shortstop with the below average arm. This guy did not have a great arm. There's guys like that need to get a look.
Real quick, just to end things on the shift, it's taking away athleticism, I think, from the middle infielders. Like, we're watching Max Muncy play second base because he's, the evolution of second baseman has allowed him to thrive there, right? Mike Moustakas has gotten time at second base because you're playing in shallow right field. You have no, you don't get the. Jock Peterson said the other day, positioning in the outfield, he doesn't get to show off his range anymore. I mean, if you're playing second base and you're a good athlete at second base, we don't even know. We don't even know if you're a good athlete at second base because you're getting ground balls in the outfield, shallow right field, and you're throwing guys out. So, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Greg Maddux because that's my guy. That right there is who I wanted to be. And I never saw him pitch.
Never saw him pitch? Oh, he was
but he was
another level.
Yeah, he was the guy that I wanted to be. Because, I mean, let's say 60, not even 65 at times throughout my career. I didn't even reach any of that. But Maddux was the guy.
No, you got in the 70s your senior year now.
Yeah,
right?
I guess the last game was 71, 70. So, I mean, we were getting somewhere, but Greg Maddux, I mean, that you don't see any more soft tossing lefties at the end of the rotation anymore. You don't see.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be one in like every rotation. And I mean, velocity has, and this has not been confirmed nor denied, but I wonder if Tommy John surgery has anything to do with our velocity has anything to do with Tommy John surgery. I mean, I wonder if there's a correlation.
There are way more arm injuries today than there were 20 years ago.
There's way harder fastballs now than there was 20 years ago. So there's no way it doesn't correlate.
You know what? And I think you're onto a great point here. And I think it has to do with proper mechanics, because if a guy's throwing 97, 99 miles an hour with bad mechanics, there's not a single coach in the world that's going to change that. Because he does it naturally from his arm position, the way his body works. You try to change it, he might throw 93, right? Or he might not know where it's going now. So I think they're looking for stuff and not mechanics. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah. They're looking for throwers instead of pitchers.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And pitchers get hitters out, not throwers.
And some of them do. I will give them credit. Some of them do learn, but they learn at the big league level where there's guys in the minor leagues that know how to pitch. I'm assuming so. There's a lot of throwers and not pitchers, and that's something that I've noticed. And I mean,
not everybody's Noah Syndergaard or Jacob deGrom, man. Not everyone has that incredible arm talent and longevity where they can throw the way they throw and work so hard to get in a certain level where they can sustain that velocity and that movement without steroids.
I don't even think steroids, I don't know, because does it have anything to do with velocity? Because I feel like steroids more help those guys in that era for staying on the field and recovering quicker from something. And because, I mean, if you were to take steroids away from Barry Bonds, I'm convinced he only loses 15 homers. That's it. I mean, nothing more. Steroids, I mean, it doesn't walk a guy 600 times intentionally. It
Oh,
doesn't. I mean, he would lose like 15 home runs at the most. I mean, steroids, it's such an overrated thing.
oh, man,
I mean,
you hit the nail on the head, Steve. This is golden, man. This is awesome right here. What we're
we are
talking about.
spitting knowledge
Oh
right
my
now.
Lord.
This is one of my, I already know this is going to be one of my favorite episodes.
But I do want to, I thought about steroids today and I wanted to bring up here. And I want to put it in the context of another profession, right? So let's go to, like, if you're a teacher or you're a professor, right? And you're getting late in the semester, it's coming to finals time, and you're really tired. And you know what? You wake up in that morning and you grab a coffee, right? There is literally no difference between a teacher grabbing a coffee and a player going on steroids. That's two people trying to do the best they absolutely can for their profession. How can you hold it against the guy? You're going to hold against the guy for doing steroids, but you're not going to hold it against the drug addict, alcoholic for detrimental health to himself. Like, I don't get where the standard is. I really don't get it. Like, we punish guys for years, 2 years down the road for steroids, but if a guy gets a DUI and accidentally kills a kid or something, somebody gets hurt, they're back on the field within days. That just doesn't add up to me. They're doing it to themselves. They know the bodily harm. They know what it does. And let me just tell everybody, it doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you a better hitter. It doesn't make you throw harder. All it does is help with your recovery time. That's it. That is literally it. You still have to do the work to get stronger, to get better.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not like you inject yourself and you wake up the next morning and you're buff.
And you're
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, all it does is kind of give you more, I guess, from what I've read. I mean, obviously I've never done any. I mean, but I mean, you just take one look at me and you could tell. No, but I mean, it's and regarding the Hall of Fame, I mean, everybody.
Don't even get me started, Stephen.
We could go into this real quick.
Oh man, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, Jose Canseco, okay, might be the biggest fool on the planet, right? But in my mind, he is the smartest guy when it came to steroids because he wrote all of those guys' names that he knew who were using in a book. And then when the Mitchell report came out years later, he was spot on with every single name that he called out.
Really was.
So Jose Canseco is the guy to listen. So he did steroids. He admitted, I would not have been good without them. And he said, I would not tell a young player to use them. So as much as a clown as this guy is, and by the way, Ivan Rodriguez is in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame. Mike Piazza.
Thank you.
Mike Piazza was a millionth round draft pick.
Yeah.
It was a courtesy pick because his dad knew someone in the Dodgers organization.
Yeah,
Lasorda.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot tell me that Mike Piazza, I read his autobiography. I read a lot of baseball biographies. Piazza admitted to using the same stuff Mark McGwire was using, and he's in the Hall of Fame. But Piazza said he stopped using it when McGwire was called out for it. So how are these guys in the Hall of Fame that did the same things? And Barry Bonds, who, by the way, Barry Bonds, while everybody else was on him, Barry Bonds was on him, but he was still better than everybody else that was on them. Exactly. And he was facing pitchers that were doing the same stuff he was doing, and he was still miles better.
Still. What
do you think?
Oh, I mean, everything you said, you hit it right on the nail, man. I couldn't disagree with a single thing. The hypocrisy that goes on in Major League Baseball. The only reason he's out of the Hall of Fame is because he did not like the media because of what they did to his family, his father, man.
And they made money off of covering
single
him.
Season. It's just the hypocrisy is insane, and I just wish they could see past themselves. Because Barry Bonds hates you, you're not going to put him in the Hall of Fame? What? Could you imagine a coach saying, "I don't like Bonds, don't start him today"? What? Like, what's your thought process, bro?
Yeah, I would tell that writer, hey, in case you didn't realize, there's not all choir boys and altar boys in the Hall of Fame right now. I mean, you
My
go in there,
Lord.
you look at some of those guys like personal life. I mean, I hate to judge it based on that. That's kind of morbid, but
You're absolutely right,
yeah,
though.
they're not all angels. I mean,
Mhm.
you go through them, the hundreds of players that are in there. There are jackasses that are in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Cap Anson is a guy who played in the 1800s and said that he would never take the field with an African American player, and he's in the Hall of Fame. But Barry Bonds is not. I mean, the guy. I mean,
Ugh,
it's
it's so
unbelievable.
frustrating, especially from a Giants standpoint, because I had the luxury of watching him play almost every single game in a Giants uniform. There was nobody better on earth ever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see players before him, but there was just nobody better, man. You couldn't throw the ball away. You couldn't throw it in. You couldn't throw it up, and you couldn't throw it down. You couldn't throw him a strike. He would take you deep or at least barrel. And the only reason he got out is because he overswing. Willie Mays used to say that. So it's just so weird to me. I couldn't care less about steroid use. I really couldn't. And I'll tell you why. At CSM, I'm not going to say his name, but you know who you are. There was a third string catcher. Let me just say this again. A third string catcher that was on steroids. A third string catcher at the junior college level on steroids. I want everybody to just think about that. His body was flawless. He had a pretty good arm. He could hit the ball. You know, he'd take balls deep in BP. You throw a little wrinkle at it, he may look a little different. That steroid didn't help you become a better ball player. And you know what? I just want to tell everybody that Barry Bonds is my uncle. And I have an interesting story. I've been waiting to tell you this, Steve. Are you ready for this?
Okay. Yeah. I want to hear it because I have some questions.
So Barry Bonds grew up in a household, right, with one of his cousins. He had many brothers and family members, and it's their business. But he grew up in a household with his cousin Dana Bonds. Dana Bonds grew up to marry my uncle, Uncle Lance. So Barry Bonds' nephews and my cousins are the same exact people. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
That's insane, right?
You've been keeping this in this whole time?
I have, and I've come across Barry Bonds twice in my life. Once when I was, or three times. Twice when I was bat boy for the Giants. One in 98, and then one in 2001. And both times, and then in a gym later when I was working for a door company. All three times, Steven, I got starstruck. I couldn't say a single word. The last time I saw him, I was 26, 27 years old. I'm 33 now. And I made up my mind. I'm going to go tell him who I am. And because he gave me advice when I got drafted, he sent an email to my Aunt Dana, telling me to get an agent, to slow down on signing, to go through the contract with my agent. He was giving me like legit advice how to literally sign a contract with knowledge in your head, not just signing your life away. So he was giving me legit advice. So he knows who I am, but he doesn't know me by face. He's never seen me. So I'm working for Vortex. I'm at Equinox Gym in San Francisco on Union Street. And I see him working out and I freak out, Steve. I freak out, dude. I'm like,
you're in headlights.
Today's the day. I'm going to go tell him who I am. I'm going to give him a hug and I'm going to tell him I love him so much. I go up the stairs. I open the door and he's right at my face, dude. He's right there. And I just stared at him. Like he knew, like, okay, this dude knows who I am. I'm going to try to do it. I did this. And so he was like, you know what he said? He said, "What's up, man?" And so all I could say back was, "What's up, man?"
Oh my!
And that was my conversation with Barry Bonds.
That is incredible. That is an A+ story.
My Lord.
Yeah.
I had butterflies for like 2 straight weeks. I was
insane.
So happy.
Yeah. All right. So before we wrap it up here, I asked people if they had any questions. Ooh. And we got a good amount of them here, and there's a lot of good ones here. This one is from a former high school teammate of mine and someone that you coached, Mr. Danilo Herger.
Oh, yes.
Yes. He wants to know, what is the hardest part about baseball?
Dealing with failure.
That's
It's
the
built
bulk of
on
it.
failure.
That's the bulk of the
do you,
game.
yeah, how do you deal with that? How do you come back from that? Everybody can deal with success. Not everybody can deal with failure. And I'll tell you one thing about scouts. They want to see how you fail. You're not like the perfect, game is scout comes to see you play, you hit 4 home runs. That's not how it works. When the scout came to see me play, my coach reminded me, they want to see how you fail. Don't come in and throw your helmet and start acting a fool. They'll scratch you right off the list. So dealing with failure is the hardest part about baseball.
Yeah. And Coach Harlan, who's going to come on very, very soon.
Oh my God, Harlan, man.
Yeah, Tom Harlan,
Genius.
of course. He said that he was evaluating young talent at a showcase, and some kid missed a baseball in the outfield. An outfielder missed a ball and slammed or yelled some cuss words, and the evaluator next to him crossed his name off the list.
Exactly.
So it's that easy. Yeah, you're one word away from being looked at and being looked down to as a guy who needs to grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
So this next question here is from on Instagram, Riordan Sports Medicine. So I could kind of figure out who that might be.
Your bro?
Yeah, he's listening probably.
All right.
He wants to know, what is your favorite part about working at Riordan? So in terms of, I could narrow that down to some people that may be unfamiliar with Riordan. What is your favorite part about working with high school kids?
Man, you know what? The first thing that comes to mind is Brandon Ramsey. This guy has
who we need to get on here, and I know he's super busy, and I want to work around his schedule, but I'll get in contact with him.
Yeah.
I know he's listening too.
Yeah, he'll listen, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. He sacrificed. He stuck his neck out on the line for me to get there. He gave me a life. He gave me a career. So I'm forever grateful, forever in his debt. Brandon Ramsey is the number one reason I enjoy going to work. I have a boss that I feel like is one of my best friends, my brother in battle, man.
Yeah.
But at the same breath, though, I'm there for the kids. I'm there for every single one. I don't care what sport you play. If you don't play a sport, if I can help you, I'm going to do that. So both of those come hand in hand. And Brandon's the same exact way as me, man. Everything he does is to better somebody around him.
So let's move on here. This one is from, actually, we just mentioned him, Tom Harlan, who will be coming on very soon. He wants to know, how much better is San Bruno than South City?
Oh, in what? Weather? The weather is way better in San Bruno. South City just gets fog nonstop. South City, San Bruno had some legit battles. When I think of San Bruno, I think of the Orozco brothers. There's a long list of names that are really Greg Gonzalez. There were some great ball players coming out of San Bruno. We had some epic battles. I won some, I lost some. But I would say who's better? Me.
You're better than all the cities combined.
I'm better than all the cities.
No, I like the answer.
Take your poison. There's great on both sides, man. You can't go wrong.
And as you mentioned, South City, shout out to a guy who him and I follow each other on Instagram. I know you know him. Cliff Calero is probably listening.
Oh,
yeah.
His dad, I know him well, but his dad, I hold real near and dear to my heart. He was a guy that I felt taught me the game of baseball at a level of competitive pitching against the hitting. I learned how to hit the curveball because of Vince Leveroni and Mike Calero. And that, I can't say enough about these. I might tear up. I just love him so much. Rest in peace, Mike Calero. Vince, if you're listening, or, I've been so blessed to have those guys in my life. So, yeah.
Well, sure. if that one made you tear up, this one's going to make you tear up here. This one is, this one says, as a formerly drafted player, How does it feel that your wife continuously strikes you out, and that is from your wife?
Oh, she's gonna love that.
Yes.
Interesting story. She actually, when we were getting married, she lied to God by telling God in church that she strikes me out on the regular. Now, in her defense, whenever I swing and miss, it's a strikeout because the gap of. But what she doesn't know is she doesn't throw a lot of strikes, Steve. So I got to
You
expand
have
the
to
zone.
chase. Yeah, you
I
have no
have to.
choice.
Yeah, and sometimes there are times where she throws it right down the middle. I try to do too much and I swing and miss. It's just part of the game. But yeah, she tries to she tries to throw little jabs, and I can't believe she said that on her wedding day. But that's just our thing, man.
Coach, I appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
Um, I knew this would turn out really good. I knew you'd be a great mind to pick, and I think a lot of people would like this episode. So I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. A lot of love and respect for you, Steve. I wish you the best in your future. I know it's bright, and I know this is not the last time I'm going to be on your podcast.
It is not. You could, you know
No.
what? You could come on whenever you want. Okay.
Okay.
You're the first person to ever receive that lifetime. You know how like when you get like 10 years in the show, some guys get like the ballpark passes.
Yeah.
You just got a RizzoCast guest. So whenever you want, whenever you're feeling like you have a hot take that you kind of want to boil off, and whenever you notice something when you're coaching, like, oh God, this kid forgot the bunt play. I got to go on RizzoCast and talk about it, the importance of not forgetting the bunt plays.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I got you.
Coach, I appreciate it again. Jeff Ramirez, everybody. You guys could keep up with us, the podcast. New episodes coming soon.